Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Metabolism and Menopause podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I am your host and CEO of Vitality OET. We are a women's nutrition, health, and fitness company that focuses predominantly on women's hormones, particularly as they start going through perimenopause and onwards. We know that so many things happen in this time of your life, whether it be hot flashes, night sweats, irritability, brain fog, or weight gain around the middle that seems to have come out of absolutely nowhere. So you go back to your tried and true methods of cutting calories, cutting carbs, doing a ton of cardio, but nothing seems to be working. In fact, maybe the scale starts going in the other direction and you just end up feeling worse. But we know now that your body is inherently different than when it was prior to you experiencing these hormonal changes. So our mission here at Vitality is to help you understand what's going on in your body so you can finally reach those health and fitness goals, live a life full of vitality, and really understand how to take care of this new body of yours. So it's January 1st, you guys. It's 2024. It's the new year. And something that I want to really kick off this year with is a little controversial, but we're going to be talking about fasting. Before I hop into this, I do want to let you guys know this is the last week to sign up for that menopause fat loss workshop that we're running. There's more information on that in the show notes for you, but basically you're going to get a customized plan. You'll get a metabolic assessment. You're going to track your food for a little bit. We're going to create a plan specifically for you, give you some exercise recommendations, supplement recommendations that are, again, just recommendations. You don't have to take that. Supplements are not the be all end all. We don't like to push those. And then, of course, your nutritional roadmap. You're also going to get one-on-one time or a small group time with a coach who's familiar with your case, has read over everything to answer all the questions that you might have about your plan. And you're going to be in a group with women who have very similar things as you, because we purposely group women that are perhaps struggling with gut health altogether, or have been in a low calorie deficit for a really long time, or have a lot of weight to lose, things like that, so that you can really hone in on those things, listen to what other people have for questions, because it's going to relate to you as well. So it's your time to get a customized plan and work with a coach, which is really exciting. We do have limited spots available because we want to keep groups small so you get as much out of it as possible. But again, there's more information in the show notes for that. So back to fasting. Oh my goodness. This is always a controversial topic. Fasting or not fasting, that's really the question, right? Because there are a ton of health gurus and experts and doctors who really advocate to fasting due to a number of reasons, of course. But how do you know if it's actually right for you? Because that's the real question. And here at Vitality OET, we are not huge fans of fasting. And I'm going to outline why today. This doesn't mean that it's not appropriate for you, but I think it's seriously over recommended without people really understanding what it does to your body and who it's appropriate for. First and foremost, it's really important to note that the majority of fasting studies are not done on women, let alone women who have a history of yo-yo dieting, have chronic conditions, have hormonal imbalances, let alone are in perimenopause or menopause. That's typically because it's too complicated. Women's hormones really muddle things. It's confusing because there's too many confounding factors, which is exactly why we need to have more of these studies done. So again, the issue with fasting, and one of the big ones, is I'm already seeing a ton of women who are under eating. Out of the thousands and thousands of women that I've talked to and that we've coached, I have only had 2 women who are actually eating enough food and were able to cut calories to go into a fat loss phase. So only 2 women out of thousands and thousands and thousands, which is crazy. And fasting is really just another way to calorically restrict, to make it so that you consume less calories. And honestly, if fasting was going to work for you, it would have worked by now. And you might say, oh, but Steph, it did work. At the beginning, it did. But did it though? Are you where you want to be? Are you happy with the way things are? Was the plan to lose weight and then to gain it back, or to plateau and get stuck? No. Therefore, it did not work because you're not where you want to be, right? It wasn't sustainable. And for whatever reason, it stopped working for you. So I first want to outline what a study done in the European Journal of Applied Physiology found in 2021. It was a meta-analysis, which means that it was a study that reviewed many, many studies to summarize all of the findings. So here's what it found. And of course, I'm going to read it to you briefly here, and then I'm going to help you understand what that actually means, because of course, medical stuff and studies can be very confusing. And I think that's part of the issue with research, is that it's not made for general population. It's for very specific things. And you can read it and be like, so is it good? Is it bad? Like, I don't really know. What does this mean? So I'm going to try and explain this to you. So while well-controlled trials show that low energy availability results in altered endocrine and physiological responses, evidence shows that short-term responses to low energy availability modulate energy homeostasis through leptin and has a modulatory effect on neuroendocrine axes such as the pituitary hypothalamus thyroid, pituitary hypothalamus gonadal, and the GHIGF1 axis, as well as downregulating muscle protein synthesis and bone metabolism. These responses are thought to antecede clinical complications that include but are not limited to reproductive function impairment, stress fractures, loss of muscle mass, and impaired physical capacity. Given that this concept arose initially from observations that complicated female athletes, historically there has been more research on this topic. There needs to be more research on this topic in females. Current research is limited, and early findings suggest that men may be less sensitive to reductions in energy availability. So you're probably all like, what? That went completely over my head. So what does all of this actually mean? In healthy young women, so those that don't have chronic conditions, are not struggling with hormonal imbalances, they're not struggling with a weight loss resistance, they found that eating low calorie, like what is done in fasting, has a number of negative consequences. So 1, a decrease in sex hormone production. So that was one of the things listed in that really sciencey scientific blurb that I took directly from that study. So we know that the fasting, the low calorie intake, is going to decrease your sex hormone production. However, we know this is already happening during perimenopause and menopause. So this means you're going to have more hormonal symptoms, which leads to more hormonal imbalances, which results in you not being able to lose fat, or you can actually end up gaining fat. So eating less and fasting can actually decrease your hormone production even more. So if you think about, okay, estrogen's dropping, progesterone is dropping. We know all these things are really not good for us, as it leads to a cascading event of negative consequences, which makes it really hard for us to lose weight. I did a whole podcast on estrogen levels in perimenopause and menopause and what happens when that drops. It's one of the first episodes we ever did, so scroll back to that one, listen to it. Otherwise, I'll be here forever. But this is a really, really big one. And again, during perimenopause and menopause, we're already struggling with fluctuating hormonal levels. Why would you want to make that worse? Putting your hormones out of balance is not going to magically lead to weight loss. That's not how this works. You're also going to see an increase in fractures. So risk of fracture goes up. And we know that in perimenopause and menopause, when estrogen goes down, we have a reduced ability to move calcium to our bones. So our bone density already starts to go down. So if we're not doing weight-bearing activity and resistance training, or we're not eating enough because we're fasting, we're going to see an increase of our risk for fracture go up even more. And we know that, like, for example, if you have a broken hip, that decreases life expectancy by 7 to 8 years. We don't want that. That's scary, right? We know that osteoporosis and osteopenia, those are not things that we want to deal with. And unfortunately, as estrogen goes down, that is a negative side effect of that. Number 3, we're going to see a decrease in muscle mass. So this is something we stress all of the time. We already have such a hard time building and maintaining muscle mass when our estrogen levels go down. By eating less and fasting, this is going to make that even worse. This means that your metabolism slows down because muscle burns more calories at rest. So your body just burns less calories. So if your body sucks at burning calories, it's going to be really hard to lose weight. So then our metabolism overall just goes down. You're also going to see that our blood sugar control also decreases, not only when estrogen goes down, but when our muscle mass decreases, we have less space for those sugars to go to, and then it gets stored as fat. And we know the more muscle mass you have, the more insulin sensitive you are. So that actually combats insulin resistance, prediabetes, diabetes. So if we aren't, eating enough food, if we're not doing the weight-bearing exercise and we're seeing estrogen goes down, this is going to be a huge issue, and fasting is going to make that worse. We're also going to see a decrease in gym performance. If you are not fueling your body adequately, you are not going to get the most out of your workouts. And it sucks to bust your butt in the gym and feel like you're not getting anything out of it, or you're not getting the results that you feel like you should be. That sucks. We know that you have a harder time accessing energy stores when you are dealing with lower estrogen levels. So for working out in the morning fasted, we're not going to get the best out of our workouts. We're going to see an increase in muscle loss. And I doubt the reason that you're working out is to lose muscle mass. You want to lose fat and maintain muscle, right? That's how you look fit. That's how you look toned. We're not doing this to have a higher body fat percentage. We're also going to have a decrease in energy. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. If you don't eat, you don't have energy. It doesn't work. This is why you're so tired. And you're also going to see a decrease in your thyroid function. So our body becomes very sensitive to stress, especially when our estrogen and progesterone levels start to decline. And then when our stress hormones go up from these hormonal changes, plus not eating, because that is a stress on our body, our thyroid function starts to slow down. And as we age, women are at a far more higher risk for developing hypothyroidism than men. So here, your thyroid is your thermostat. It's how many calories your body likes to burn at rest. It really controls that dial. So if thyroid function starts to slow down, your thyroid ends up sending a signal to your body of, hey, we need to preserve energy. So we're going to start burning less calories. So your body gets worse and worse and worse at burning calories. So the less you eat and the less you have carbs and the more stressed out you are, and you're fasting, and you're losing your estrogen levels and your progesterone levels, thyroid health is going to go down and down and down, and your body gets really crappy at burning calories. So this is where fasting for thyroid issues for us is a no-no. We know you need to be eating enough, eating regularly, help control your blood sugars, make sure you're getting enough carbohydrates to take stress off the system. And fasting is not conducive to that whatsoever. So that is one of the really, really big ones, is fasting really, really affects our hormonal balance. And it's just conducive to not eating enough food. Because if you're eating a small window, it's really hard to get enough calories in from whole foods, because whole foods are very filling. So if you're trying to eat 2,000 calories in 6 to 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours or whatever it is, it's really tough. Unless you're having hyper palatable foods, you're having lots of smoothies, you're having lots of chips and things like that, because it's easier to digest and eat those things. Whereas if you're trying to get 2,000 calories from mostly whole foods in a small eating window, you're going to feel stuffed. And it's going to be really hard to make sure you're getting enough food, which is going to lead to this cascading event. And we know that in this study, they said men are more resilient to stress. They don't have the same physiological responses to a reduced calorie intake compared to women. So this is why we can't be as aggressive. We can't be in a fat loss phase for as long. So fasting for a lot of women is contraindicated, or you shouldn't be doing it, because it's just too much stress on your body. And depending what you've been through and what's going on, it just ends up adding stress on top of stress on top of stress, which I'm going to touch on in a bit, making it really hard to lose weight, or you see weight gain. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, it's incredibly hard to get protein in. So the majority of women that we talk to are not eating enough protein whatsoever. So first of all, why is protein so important? Well, for a number of reasons. It builds muscle. It helps stabilize your blood sugars. It keeps you full longer. The thermic effect of food. So protein burns more calories during the digestive process compared to proteins and fat, to carbs and fat. And then how much do you need of protein? This is something we get asked all the time. You need anywhere from 0.8 grams to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight. Typically we max people out around 150 grams because it's just harder to digest. So 150 is kind of where I like to max people out. But again, that can vary a bit. But that means that women need to be eating a minimum based on average weights and sizes and stuff a minimum of 100 grams of protein, but usually more than that. And most women are getting like 60 grams. So a lot of women struggle to get that protein in because that is, like we said, it's very filling. It empties your stomach a lot slower, so you're full for longer. It stabilizes your blood sugars, so you don't have crashes and cravings. So it's really good. But can you imagine trying to eat 120 grams of protein separated in 2 meals and a snack? Like, that's a lot. That's like 50 grams, and 20 grams. That's a lot of chicken. So 60 grams, that's like almost 11 ounces of chicken breast. I mean, 3 eggs is just 18 grams of protein. And again, protein's very filling. So that's really tough. So it's really, really hard to get your protein in when you are fasting because you don't have a big enough window to spread that out. So you feel like you're force feeding yourself all of the time. So the first one was not eating enough food. The second one is not getting enough protein. Number 3, cortisol. Of course, we're going to talk about cortisol. So cortisol is going to result in hormonal imbalances and weight gain. My favorite topic, right? You guys know this. So what happens when cortisol goes up from not eating enough food? It's a stress. We're going to see more inflammation, which unfortunately already happens when estrogen goes down. We're going to see an increase in hypothyroidism risk, which again, we know is already happening when estrogen goes down and we're in a high stress state. We're going to see an increase in our bloating and digestion issues, which already happens during perimenopause and menopause. We're going to see poor sleep, which a lot of women are already dealing with, poor energy, which a lot of women, again, are already dealing with, more energy crashes and cravings, a decrease in hormone production, particularly progesterone, which leads to more bloating and weight gain. You're going to see a decrease in your muscle mass because cortisol likes to break down muscle for energy, which leads to you having a higher body fat percentage, which we know is already happening when estrogen goes down. Again, we have that poor blood sugar control and an increase in insulin resistance, which we're already at risk of when estrogen goes down because it helps regulate our blood sugars. And basically, we're just stuck in fight or flight all of the time. And so what really happens here is, again, we know estrogen and progesterone go down and we can't buffer stress the way we used to. So before you started having hormonal changes, you could handle a lot, like a 9 out of 10 on the stress scale, and your body wouldn't be experiencing physiological responses of like really high cortisol, like everything I just talked about. But during perimenopause and menopause, when estrogen and progesterone go down, that's what really helps us buffer our stress. So now our threshold goes down and we can only handle a 5 out of 10 before we start seeing all these negative side effects. And you might be like, Steph, I don't have more stress than the next person. I handle it well. You might think that you handle it well, but your body is telling you otherwise. If you are struggling with sleep and energy and crashes and cravings and you're exhausted and you're not seeing results in the gym and you're go, go, go all the time and you feel like it takes you forever to recover, those are signs that you're not handling stress well at all. So while you think you might be handling it well in your head, your body is not. And you cannot like think your way into handling it well. That's not how this works. So we know with the cortisol levels, when you're fasting, there was a recent study that came out that showed fasting in women increases resting cortisol levels. So you're at a higher stressed state because you're not eating. And we know that cortisol is naturally high in the morning. And if you don't eat, cortisol will keep climbing. If you have coffee on an empty stomach, cortisol goes up even higher. And then most of you guys will just have like a salad and a piece of chicken for lunch. There's no carb in that. Carbs help bring cortisol down. So you're just letting cortisol sky high all day, all day, all day. And you're just stuck in this constant state of fight or flight. You're getting bloating that gets worse throughout the day. And these are all symptoms of that high stress response. You start having more sleep issues. You start having more energy issues and cravings and all of these negative side effects that you thought were menopause. But it's because cortisol really amplifies all those things. And that's obviously going to make it really hard to lose weight if you're constantly tired. It's hard to want to work out. You are reaching for sugary snacks. You just aren't enjoying the things that you used to enjoy. And that's because of this effect. And again, fasting in perimenopausal and menopausal women has been shown to increase cortisol levels. So if you're someone who doesn't have a lot of stress, who doesn't have a ton of history of dieting, is sleeping well, has good results, hasn't had issues losing weight, you're in a good, healthy spot, fasting could work because you don't have to buffer a bunch of other stress. But unfortunately, for 99% of women, we're super stressed. We're super stressed, super tired, and underfed all of the time. We're rushing around. We're go, go, go from the moment we wake up, taking care of everybody else. We've got stress from finances and career and family and kids and taxiing them around. And you're worried about your kids' college tuition and you're worried about your kids leaving your house and you're dealing with sick parents. And that's a lot of stress. And not eating by fasting is going to make that worse. And that's not going to result in weight loss. You're going to end up gaining weight. You're going to progressively keep feeling worse and worse and worse. So we've covered 3 so far. We've talked about not eating enough food. We've talked about not getting enough protein, and we've talked about too much cortisol. So the number 4 reason that we don't like fasting is you will lose muscle mass. There was a study that came out that more than 16 hours of fasting in women resulted in muscle loss in healthy women. Fasting for more than 12 hours in menopausal women resulted in losing muscle mass. And we already know that losing muscle mass is already an issue during perimenopause and menopause when estrogen goes down. We have such a hard time building and maintaining that muscle mass. And eating less is just going to make it worse. Not eating it often enough will also make it worse. If you are doing a ton of cardio, if you're not sleeping enough, if you're not having carbs, if you're not having enough protein, all those things are just going to lead to less and less muscle mass, which leads to a higher body fat percentage. And we know that you're also going to see more issues with blood sugar control, which is also going to lead to fat storage. We don't want that. So why would you put yourself in a situation of fasting where that's more conducive to losing muscle if you don't have to? Plus, you guys, breakfast is delicious. Like, what are we doing, honestly? Number 5, energy throughout the day and blood sugar. This is a big one. And this is where cortisol kind of dings into this one a little bit. So we know, like I said, cortisol keeps going up throughout the day if we're not eating, right? And you're like, oh, it's great for my blood sugar. Is like, I'm not eating any sugar. I'm good. No. What happens when you're in this stress state and cortisol goes up? Cortisol, one of its roles is to dump blood sugar into the bloodstream in the absence of food. So you might think, oh, I'm doing great things for my blood sugar. I'm not having carbohydrates. I'm fasting. Your body will actually dump sugar into your bloodstream in the absence of food, resulting in a blood sugar spike. So cortisol dumps sugar in, blood sugar goes up, insulin goes, oh, I need to help, comes in. And that's kind of like the taxi driver. It shuttles sugar, knocks on the door of your cells, opens the door and allows sugar to go in to bring that blood sugar down. But again, you're still not eating. So insulin comes up, blood sugar starts to come down, and then your body's like, oh, stress response goes up again and starts dumping more sugar in, again, in the absence of food. So cortisol goes up, blood sugar goes up, insulin comes down, blood sugar comes down, cortisol goes up, drops blood sugar into your bloodstream, insulin comes up even higher. And this is going and going and going and going, making you eventually insulin resistant, which means your body isn't responding to insulin knocking on the doors of the cells to allow it to open, to allow sugars to go into the muscle. So instead it ends up getting shuttling to fat mass. Your cells aren't responsive to insulin, leading to insulin resistance and prediabetes and diabetes. And we know that when estrogen goes down, our blood sugar sensitivity also goes down because that's one of the wonderful roles of estrogen. So by not eating, you can actually make it worse, which I don't think is what you want to do. And I don't think that's why you're fasting. For a lot of you, you want to fast because you think it's good for your blood sugars. But if you are in a high stress state, it's actually going to make things worse, which I think is the last thing that you want. Number 6 is binging. So I'm sure this sounds familiar for a lot of you. You don't eat much during the day because you're saving your calories for later. And you're go all day, right? You're rushing around, dropping off the kids. You're eating through your lunch break, or not eating on your lunch break. You're just working through it. Like you're just go. And then finally you come home and you kind of feel like you can breathe. Maybe if your kids aren't making you mad, right? And then all of a sudden you have this crazy feeling of, I need to eat. As soon as you give your body that little chance to rest and kind of de-stress a bit, you want to eat everything that's in the pantry, right? And this is because you're always in this fight or flight response, like I talked about. So if you're not eating during the daytime, we're having that blood sugar response I just talked about, where you're dumping sugar into your bloodstream. So you're constantly go, 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 running away from the bear, fighting the bear, when really we're just sitting at a desk working, right? So then when you finally get out of that fight or flight mode, when you get home and you get to relax, now your body's like, holy crap, that was a lot. That was a crazy bear situation we had going on. We need to stock up because we don't know when we're going to get fed next. We need to prepare for the chaos that seems to be happening on a regular basis. So by not eating regularly throughout the day, then you have this uncontrollable craving for sweets, right? Where you get home and it's like, man, my sugar cravings are getting worse. My salt cravings are getting worse. Like, I just don't have control. I feel like I get home and I'm just like a monster, and I feel crappy about myself, and I'm ashamed, and I feel guilty. So I try not to eat a bunch tomorrow, and then it happens again. And it happens again. But this is how your body hormonally works. This is how it's set up to save you during times of famine or the zombie apocalypse or whatever it may be. So it's not a lack of willpower. Your body is literally working against you because you aren't fueling it adequately. So this is where eating enough food, making sure you have the foods that you enjoy regularly throughout the day and throughout your life, you aren't cutting anything out specifically. So then you're having a better relationship with food. And this leads me to number 7, which is your relationship with food. We see so many women go through the binge restrict cycle, like I just talked about, where it's like, you're doing good, you're doing good, you're doing good. And then all of a sudden you're just binging like crazy. You fall off the wagon because it's too strict. But also the relationship with food, with fasting, I see can be a big issue for a lot of women, because you're like, I can have whatever I want as long as I don't eat before noon or before 10 or whatever it might be. But then, are you choosing good quality foods? Are you learning anything? Which brings me to number 8, which is you don't really learn anything when you're fasting. Like, how is it actually supposed to help your body? Why is it working or not working? What is this doing to my hormones, to my energy, to my sleep, my digestion? Do I have to do this forever? Where should my food quality be? Am I getting everything that I need in my diet? Can I have this? Can I not have that? Like, you don't learn anything from fasting, aside from the fact that, like, somehow if you eat before noon or after 7 p.m. naturally, you're somehow going to start gaining fat. That doesn't make sense. That's not how the body functions. That's not how the body works. And it can really give you a messed up relationship with foods that leads to that binge restrict cycle. But you also find that, like, women then fall into, like, feeling guilty, or they can't go out for brunch with the girls because it's not in their eating window, or you can't have a bedtime snack with your kids or a treat because it's too late. It's not conducive to real life, and it's not great for your hormonal health. And also, number 9, I'm not in the business of telling women not to eat. That is what our entire health and fitness field and the culture and the industry has done, is just taught us to eat less, move more, eat less, move more, eat less, move more. And you're freaking miserable. And you're not feeling like yourself. You don't like what you look like in the mirror. You're not happy. You're obsessing over food. You are just so frustrated and feeling so hopeless and wondering, what is wrong with me? Why isn't this working for me, but it's working for someone else? Why did it used to work and now it's not working? Of course, you're going to be frustrated and feeling hopeless and lost, but it's because no one has taught you why things used to work, or why they're not working now, or what you should be doing. You don't know your body. No one's educated you on how everything, what you do, how it affects your hormones and your metabolism and your energy and your sleep and your relationships and your mental health. No one's told you that a drop in estrogen can lead to depression. And then people put you on medication when really they should just be helping you improve your estrogen levels. Nobody talks about these things because the industry just pushes and pushes and pushes. Eat less, move more, eat less, move more. But let's face it, if that was going to work, it would have worked right now. It would have worked by now. You wouldn't be where you are right now. So really taking the time to understand why you're doing something, how it impacts your body, how are you going to maintain the results? If the person that you're talking to cannot tell you those things, if they don't take the time to ask you about your past dieting experience and your stress and your sleep and your digestion and past traumas and all of those things, they don't know your body. So how can they give you any advice on what to follow? They're just going to tell you not to eat before noon? That doesn't make sense. So if you have questions, you guys, please feel free to message me. Again, we only have a little bit more time left for the workshop. If you want to sign up for that, we have limited spots. So hopefully there's still some by the time this airs, because I know spots are already getting taken up already. But as always, you guys, if you need help with anything, if you need help figuring out what the heck is going on in your body, just message me. There is hope. I will always help you for free. I will ask you a million questions. So don't expect the conversation to be short, but this is what I want to do. This is what I want to help empower you with, is to help you understand your body so you can take care of it, be happy, live a good, healthy life, not have to worry about food all the time. This is what's important. So if you need anything, just let me know. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Happy New Year. 2024 is going to be the best year yet. I can feel it. And talk to you all soon. Bye.